Looks like someone still brings lunch in this old thing.
Keep laughing. Tomorrow, your shareholders won't.
The entire robotics convention erupted in laughter. Standing on the main stage, CEO Olivia Sinclair held up an old steel lunchbox. Someone left this backstage. She smiled before looking into the crowd. Oh, it belongs to our guest, Marcus Bennett, a black single dad wearing worn work boots, still carrying the same lunchbox he'd used for 15 years. Olivia laughed. I guess not everyone can afford executive catering. Hundreds of investors laughed with her. Phones came out. Someone started recording. Marcus quietly walked onto the stage, picked up his lunchbox, brushed a little dust from the lid, then looked directly at Olivia. I hope your shareholders laugh this hard tomorrow. The ballroom suddenly became silent. Olivia smirked. Is that supposed to be a threat? Marcus calmly shook his head. No, it's a forecast. Then he quietly walked away. Less than 24 hours later, Sinclair Robotics lost the supplier that powered nearly every machine they manufactured. The stock collapsed. Investors panicked. Banks froze new financing. And the only man capable of saving the company was the same black single father everyone had laughed at. Because while they mocked his old lunchbox, no one realized he had already started buying their company. His message stayed on Marcus Bennett's phone for only a few seconds. Phase 1 is complete. He locked the screen, picked up his steel lunchbox, and returned to helping one of his mechanics replace a damaged hydraulic arm. No celebration, no excitement. To everyone inside Bennett Industrial Solutions, it was simply another workday. Across Pittsburgh, it was anything but ordinary. Sinclair Robotics had entered full crisis mode. Inside the Executive Operations Center, every monitor flashed red. Production Line 3, offline. Production Line 5, offline. Export orders, delayed. Penalty contracts, activating. Olivia Sinclair paced across the room. Has anyone reached Titan Precision Components? The supply chain director shook his head. Every call goes directly to voicemail. What about email? No response. Their regional office? Closed. Silence filled the room. For the first time since becoming CEO, Olivia looked genuinely worried. 2 hours later, an emergency board meeting was called. 12 executives surrounded the long walnut conference table. The chief financial officer projected alarming numbers onto the screen. If production remains stopped for 72 hours, we'll lose nearly $48 million. One board member leaned forward. And our government contracts? Delayed deliveries trigger automatic penalties. Another director spoke quietly. Our stock has already fallen 9% this morning. The room became silent. Olivia crossed her arms. Find another supplier. The operations director sighed. We've contacted 26 manufacturers. No one can produce Titan's control modules. Not even overseas? They use a patented manufacturing process. Olivia stared at the report, then asked the question no one wanted to answer. Who owns Titan Precision? The room remained quiet. Finally, the legal director answered. It's privately held. The ownership structure isn't public. Meanwhile, Marcus stood beside Maya in her school's science laboratory. Students gathered around homemade engineering projects. Tiny robots, solar-powered cars, bridge models. Maya nervously adjusted the wheels on her small robotic arm. Dad, what if it doesn't work? Marcus smiled. Then you'll learn why. And if everyone laughs? He looked at her kindly. They're watching the result. You'll be learning the process. The competition began. One by one, student inventions failed. Motors overheated. Sensors stopped responding. Wheels broke apart. When Maya's turn arrived, she quietly placed her project on the demonstration table. The small robotic arm lifted 3 metal blocks, sorted them by color, then stacked each one perfectly. The classroom erupted into applause. Maya couldn't stop smiling. Marcus clapped louder than anyone. Not because she had won, but because she had believed in herself. Across town, Sinclair Robotics wasn't applauding anyone. Shareholders demanded answers. Financial news channels began covering the production shutdown. One reporter stood outside company headquarters. Industry experts are calling this the biggest manufacturing disruption Sinclair Robotics has faced in over a decade. Inside, Olivia watched the live broadcast with frustration. Her assistant hurried inside. "Ma'am, you need to see this." She handed Olivia a tablet. Titan Precision Components had released an official statement. Effective immediately, all future manufacturing agreements with Sinclair Robotics have been terminated. No explanation, no warning, no negotiation. Only one sentence at the bottom. This decision is final. Olivia slammed the tablet onto her desk. This makes no sense. We've worked together for 8 years. That evening, Marcus quietly visited Cross Capital Holdings. Unlike most investment firms, there were no giant logos, no marble lobby, no rows of receptionists, only a restored brick building overlooking the river. Inside, Daniel Cross waited in a private office. 70 years old, silver hair, sharp eyes. The legendary investor smiled as Marcus entered. "You've stayed patient." Marcus nodded. "You taught me that." Daniel poured 2 cups of coffee. "How's Maya?" "She won her robotics competition." Daniel smiled proudly. "Your wife would have loved that." Marcus looked down for a moment. "I think about her every day." Silence settled between them. Finally, Daniel slid a confidential folder across the desk. Marcus opened it. Inside were Sinclair Robotics stock reports, ownership percentages, market projections, and one highlighted sentence. Current market decline, 18%. Daniel folded his hands. The opportunity has arrived. Marcus remained thoughtful. "I didn't start this." "I know, but you can decide how it ends." Marcus closed the folder. "I don't want revenge." Daniel smiled. "I've never believed you did. You simply refuse to let arrogance destroy thousands of innocent jobs." Marcus looked toward the window overlooking Pittsburgh. "The employees aren't responsible. The families aren't responsible." Daniel nodded. "Exactly." The following morning, Wall Street opened. Sinclair Robotics shares dropped again. News anchors called it historic. Investors rushed to sell. Analysts predicted bankruptcy within months. Hidden among thousands of ordinary stock purchases, one quiet investment company, Riverside Equity Partners, purchased another large block of Sinclair Robotics shares. No one noticed, because Riverside rarely appeared in financial headlines. What no investor realized was that Riverside had only one client, Marcus Bennett. Across town, Marcus tightened the final bolt on a repaired factory machine. A mechanic walked over smiling. "Mr. Bennett, the customer says nobody else could have fixed it." Marcus wiped the grease from his hands. "Good. Send the invoice." The mechanic laughed. "You really don't care about headlines, do you?" Marcus smiled. "I'd rather earn trust than attention." At that exact moment, across the city, Olivia Sinclair watched another 10% disappear from her company's value. She still believed she was fighting a supplier crisis. She had no idea. Someone was quietly buying the future of her company, one share at a time. 3 weeks later, the crisis had become impossible to hide. Sinclair Robotics had lost nearly 40% of its market value. Investors were leaving. Major clients delayed new contracts. Financial news channels discussed only one question: can Sinclair Robotics survive? Inside company headquarters, the atmosphere had completely changed. The same hallways that once echoed with confidence now carried only anxious whispers. Olivia Sinclair stood inside the executive boardroom. Dark circles surrounded her eyes. For the first time in years, she looked exhausted. The chief financial officer slid another report across the table. "We have enough cash to operate for another 60 days. Silence. The operations director spoke quietly. "Without a replacement supplier, Our factories remain half idle. Another executive sighed. Our competitors are already contacting our customers. Olivia clenched her fists. There has to be another solution. No one answered, because no one had one. Across Pittsburgh, Marcus Bennett's life hadn't changed. Every morning, he still unlocked his small warehouse before sunrise, still greeted every employee by name, still repaired broken industrial machines beside his mechanics. That afternoon, a young apprentice accidentally damaged an expensive robotic controller. His face turned pale. "I'm sorry, Mr. Bennett. I ruined it." Marcus examined the damaged equipment, then smiled. "No, you learned something." The young mechanic looked confused. "I just cost the company thousands." Marcus placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "A mistake becomes expensive only when you refuse to learn from it." The entire workshop fell silent. Every employee remembered why they respected him. He built people, not just machines. Later that evening, Marcus met Daniel Cross once again. This time, the confidential report looked very different. Daniel smiled. "Congratulations." Marcus glanced at the document. Riverside Equity Partners. Ownership position, 38.7%. Daniel leaned back. "You're now the largest individual shareholder." Marcus remained quiet. Daniel laughed softly. "I've never met anyone who buys a billion-dollar company without looking excited." Marcus closed the folder. "I didn't buy a company. I invested in its people. The factories, the engineers, the families who depend on those jobs." Daniel nodded proudly. "That's exactly why you'll succeed." The following morning, Olivia received a call from the chairman of the board. "Emergency meeting." Immediately, 30 minutes later, every board member sat around the conference table. No one smiled. The chairman stood. "We've received notice." Olivia looked confused. "Notice of what?" He placed a legal document in front of her. "A new controlling shareholder." Her heart skipped. "Who?" The chairman slowly adjusted his glasses. "The investment came through Riverside Equity Partners." Olivia frowned. "I've never heard of them." "Neither had we. Until yesterday." She looked around the room. "So who owns Riverside?" The chairman quietly answered, "We're still trying to find out." That same afternoon, Marcus drove to Maya's school. She climbed into the pickup truck carrying another engineering trophy. "We won first place." Marcus laughed proudly. "I knew you would." She looked at him. "Dad, were you ever scared to build something new?" Marcus smiled. "Every single time." "Then how did you keep going?" He looked through the windshield. "Because fear disappears. When your purpose becomes bigger than yourself." She quietly nodded. "I want to build things that help people." Marcus smiled. "Then you've already started becoming a great engineer." Meanwhile, back at Sinclair Robotics, the legal department finally completed its investigation. Olivia's assistant rushed into her office. "We know who owns Riverside." Olivia immediately stood. "Who?" The assistant hesitated, then placed a photograph on the desk. Olivia stared at it. It was Marcus Bennett, standing inside his small repair warehouse, holding the same old steel lunchbox. Her face turned pale. She whispered, "No, this can't be possible." The assistant swallowed hard. "It is. The man you laughed at now owns more of this company than anyone else." For the first time in her career, Olivia Sinclair realized the quiet single father she had mocked in front of the entire business world was about to become her boss. The executive boardroom had never felt so quiet. Every director stared at the photograph lying on the polished conference table. Marcus Bennett, the black single father, the man Olivia Sinclair had mocked in front of thousands of people. The same man who now owned more shares of Sinclair Robotics than anyone else. Olivia slowly sank into her chair. "This has to be a mistake." The chairman calmly slid another document toward her. "It isn't. He legally acquired every share last night." He officially became the majority shareholder. No one spoke. For the first time since becoming CEO, Olivia realized she was no longer the most powerful person in the company. The following Monday, every employee gathered inside Sinclair Robotics' main auditorium. Rumors had spread all weekend. Some expected bankruptcy. Others expected mass layoffs. Everyone waited nervously. Then, the auditorium doors opened. Marcus Bennett quietly walked inside wearing the same simple navy work shirt, the same worn work boots, and carrying the same old steel lunchbox. Employees looked at one another in disbelief. The man from the viral video was walking onto the CEO stage. Marcus placed the lunchbox on the podium, looked across thousands of employees, then smiled. "I know many of you are scared. I would be too." The room became completely silent. "I didn't buy this company to destroy it. I bought it so the people who built it wouldn't lose everything because of someone else's pride." Many employees lowered their heads. Several quietly applauded. The applause quickly spread throughout the auditorium. Within seconds, the entire room stood on its feet. Olivia watched from the front row. She had expected revenge. Instead, she was witnessing leadership. After the meeting ended, she quietly approached Marcus. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Finally, she broke the silence. "I judged you by your lunchbox." Marcus smiled softly. "You weren't the first." She looked down. "I laughed because I thought success had a certain look." Marcus gently picked up the old steel lunchbox. "My father carried this. When I got my first job, he gave it to me. When he passed away, I promised I'd never forget where I came from." Olivia felt tears forming. "I thought it made you look small." Marcus shook his head. "No, it reminded me to stay humble." A few moments later, Marcus handed Olivia a folder. She looked confused. "What's this?" "Your new employment agreement." She slowly opened it. Her eyes widened. "You want me to stay?" Marcus nodded. "You're a talented engineer. But leadership isn't measured by titles. It's measured by how you treat people." Olivia looked at him in disbelief. "After everything I did, you still trust me?" Marcus answered honestly. "I believe people deserve the chance to become better, just like companies do." For the first time in years, Olivia wasn't speaking to a shareholder or an investor. She was speaking to a leader. 6 months later, Sinclair Robotics became one of the fastest-growing manufacturing companies in America. Production lines reopened. Every employee kept their job. New apprentices were hired. Scholarship programs were created for children interested in engineering. The very first scholarship was named after Marcus's late wife. Every Friday morning, Marcus still arrived before sunrise, still repaired machines alongside his mechanics, still ate lunch from the same old steel lunchbox. Nothing about him had changed, except one thing. Now, the people who once laughed stopped to shake his hand. As Marcus left the factory one evening, Maya ran toward him holding another engineering award. "We did it, Dad." Marcus smiled proudly. "No, you did." Father and daughter walked toward the old pickup truck together as the Pittsburgh sunset painted the steel skyline in shades of gold. Because real success isn't measured by the company you own or the money in your bank account. It's measured by the people whose lives become better, simply because you were part of their story. The end.